All right, so welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us today. This is Erin Donovan, Interim Director for the AIA New Orleans. This is going to be the first of our webinar series. This one will be Remote Work Best Practices. This series of webinars is going to be done in response to the survey that we sent out last week about issues that have come up in the AEC community around the coronavirus pandemic. And today we're going to tackle something that a lot of folks have been dealing with over the past week or so, which is transitioning from in-person to a remote practice. Just a note up top about the format of this webinar. So sound is going to be off for all of our attendees. You're muted, but you will be able to submit questions via the Q&A option in the black bar on your screen. We'll have our panelists presenting, and then at the end we will be able to get answers from them to your questions. We are recording this session so that you can go over it later if you have anything that you weren't able to catch in the moment, and we will also try to make that available on our website. We are a two-person team, so unfortunately we don't really have the capacity to troubleshoot or answer any IT questions during the webinar. There is, however, a backup phone number that you can call that you received in the email that you got this morning with the link to the Zoom webinar. On the agenda for today, we are going to go over briefly what exactly the AIA New Orleans is doing in terms of remote work policies, so that you can have kind of a glimpse behind the curtains at how things are working over here. Then we'll hear from David Merlin of One-to-One Design, addressing external, internal communications, workflow, and workspace. Then we'll hear from Jason Richards of EDR on communications and other applications. And finally, we'll have our Q&A with a few closing remarks and follow-up action items. So before we kind of dive into the meat of the webinar, I wanted to speak briefly about what the AIA New Orleans is doing in order to navigate this crisis. Like many of you, the AIA New Orleans transitioned to working from home last week to better protect staff and constituents. We work roughly standard hours from 9 to 5, Monday through Friday, and are available via email and phone. And we as a staff stay in touch using Slack and Zoom. We're also in contact regularly with our board and our board president, Terry Dreyer. On a local level, we're in communication with officials in the mayor's office and nonprofit organizations like the Greater New Orleans Foundation. On a state and national level, we're in frequent communication with AIA Louisiana and AIA National, as well as monitoring any updates through federal and news channels. And we've compiled, thanks to Lauren, our content coordinator, a great list of resources available through our website from all of these organizations that we've been in contact with. Our goal as an organization over the course of the next several weeks or longer is to make sure that our New Orleans members are supported through this crisis with updated information on resources, opportunities for advocacy, and continuing education units provided virtually by our professional affiliate members. And again, we'll be sharing links to these resources at the end of the presentation, and we encourage you to be in contact with us with any questions or concerns. So we'll be handing things over to David Merlin. David Merlin is a registered architect who received his Master of Architecture from Tulane University and a Bachelor of Arts from Vanderbilt University with cum laude distinction in economics. His interests span between professional practice and academic research, as he is a principal of One-to-One Design, a full-service architecture firm that also consults for artists, facade designers, and other design firms, and he holds an appointment at Tulane School of Architecture. At One-to-One Design, David leads projects through all phases of design, contributes to business development and strategic planning efforts, and administers business operations and heads the computation design unit. So I'll hand things over to him now. And if you have any questions during his presentation, please just include them in the Q&A.
Thanks, Erin. I'm going to try and show my screen. Let me know if y'all see it. Can you get a thumbs up, Jason, if you, perfect. All right, so Erin, thank you very much for the introduction. I'm looking through the list. I know some of you, but not all of you. Just to give you a snapshot of One-to-One, we are an 8-person firm, and we started using some of the technology that I'm going to talk about months and years ago. So the transition for us wasn't as big of a learning curve as others. What I'm going to talk about takes time because you have to create a culture around all of it. So I think for me, the biggest thing is be patient and flexible with both yourselves and your staff. I'm going to start off talking about some external communication, how we talk to clients, how we talk in the office, our workflow, and then some tips and tricks for creating a remote workspace. External communication. We use GoToMeeting. Right now, everyone's on Zoom. I think this is going to be the easiest one for everyone. People are relatively familiar. The tough part about this is you need to create some guidelines for your office when you're doing video conferencing. And the one thing that I'm a big believer of is turn on your video. We're all in disparate places. Maybe we feel isolated a little bit. Just the idea of seeing everyone's face, even on the computer screen, makes it more palatable and you create a better connection with people. You always want to dress appropriately, dress like you're going to work. Choose a quiet spot. Background noise makes video conferencing crazy. So that also goes into, if you're not talking, mute yourself. This is really easy. People always forget about it. Sometimes they forget to unmute themselves when they start talking. It makes it much easier for everyone in the conference. If you're hosting a conference, my suggestion would be to mute everyone to start with. Most platforms will tell people they're muted. And then you also want to send instructions how to access the conference way ahead of time, a couple days. You can always remind people an hour before or whatever it may be. Internal communication. I've sat on like 3 or 4 webinars over the last 2 weeks, and people are all talking about all the possible solutions for internal communication. Instead of kind of rehashing everything that I've heard, but maybe a good idea would let you guys see exactly how we've implemented some of these platforms, because it's kind of nebulous until you get into it and understand it. So the first one that I think is a have-to is some sort of cloud-based office software. We use G Suite. What that allows us to do is access from anywhere, so you can get emails, see the calendar, access the information from home, office, wherever it may be. A big one for us is a shared calendar. We're at a size where you can put everyone on the calendar and it's not too overwhelming. I'm sure EDR is a little different, but what this allows us to do is see people's availability. and really quickly schedule meetings, understand if someone is not available. I encourage everyone at one-to-one to put all their obligations during working hours on the calendar. So even if they need to go to a doctor's appointment or do whatever errand, put it on there. We know you're not available at that time, so if I can't get in touch with you, I don't have to ask why. What are they doing? Especially in a remote setting, finding people can be one of the most frustrating parts of it. And then, of course, file storage. I don't know how many of you have an internal server or whether or not you share files via the cloud. The nice thing about the cloud is you can access it from anywhere and spin it up from anywhere. So just to show you our calendar, I've got all my people on. Kind of everyone's meetings are there. I can see when people are available, they're not available. I've even included my wife Erin's obligations too, since we're passing a 7-month-old back and forth between meetings. It really helps me, and I think it's helped the office manage this really well. Let's see, Slack. So if you're in disparate locations, you have to have an effective way to communicate with people other than picking up the phone or video conference. Some people call it text communication, some people call it chat. Either way, the idea is information is there for you to access at any time. Other platforms like Microsoft Teams, they do similar things. So the way we set up our Slack is that every project gets a channel. And then you also have direct communication with individuals within the office. And what we do with these channels is the philosophy is you put all decision-making into a project channel. So we're working on a church for Bethany. And if you start scrolling up, you can kind of see discussions about how decisions were made, some code snippets about openings, just kind of all the information about the project. I think this does a couple things. The first thing it does is that if someone needs to jump on the project, like we all do under deadline, this is a really quick way for people to onboard to the project. What's been going on, why people made certain decisions. It's a great onboarding tool. It also makes it easy to post a piece of information. Maybe someone is in a meeting or on a call. They don't forget about it. It's there right in front of them when they come back. You can also tag people on here. So if I need to talk to my project manager, Amy, about anything in particular, I would say, at Amy, hey, can you look into this? And that sends people a notification saying, hey, someone just sent you a message. You can put this on your phone, your computer, your tablet. It goes anywhere. It's scalable, super easy. And then one of the amazing things I like about Slack is they only charge you for what you use. So you might have 30 people signed up, but if 20 of those people are inactive, they don't charge you for the inactive people, which is absolutely amazing. There's very few platforms that I found that do that. Besides internally, this is the one-to-one workspace. You can sign up for other workspaces as well. So there's a Revit user group workspace that's open to public. Right now, one-to-one is working in a joint venture on some existing conditions at the Superdome. So this is the workspace for that project. It really kind of helps facilitate communication and sharing of information, which is much harder when everyone is in different locations. For task management, we use a platform called Trello. There's lots of different types of all sorts of flavors of this type of platform. We were inspired by the Agile process as an organization tool for our Trello. And what that means is that you have a list of action items, things that need to be done. If someone picks up that task, they literally move the task from action items to in progress. When they finish a task, they move it from in progress to complete. The nice thing about this is that all of those movements of, they call them cards, is tracked. So if I go in this task for permit, I'll see kind of more specific things each person needs to do. I'll also see a log of the activity of the card. Who did what? When did they do it? So if you're trying to figure out, did this get done? When did it get done? Whatever it may be, all of that history lives within these cards, which is really nice. So besides action items in progress and complete, which come from the Agile setup of task management, we've also added two lists here. The first one is the phase. Sometimes people just, they have a little brain fart. They're like, what phase are we in? Or they're just jumping on the project. How do they know which phase to build to, whatever it may be? So, and then we have an agenda items list. Topics come up throughout the week. Hey, we need to ask this to this person, this person. We just track all that information in these agenda cards. Workflow. So the biggest curve we had going remote was choosing the platform for remote access. The way one-to-one is set up right now, people are at home on their personal computers. They remote into the office and access their desktop through a platform called Splashtop. The reason we chose Splashtop, it was easily implementable. You just had to install something on the computer at the office, computer at home, and basically you're ready to go. As opposed to a platform like Remote Desktop, where you have to set up VPN connections from each person's home into the office and then launch it through VPN. Now there are drawbacks to Splashtop. The biggest one is latency. You get a lag while you're working. The lag is consistent, but it's always there. Right now we're testing out Remote Desktop to see if we can get less of a lag over VPN. But Splashtop really helped us get remote quickly, which was really nice. We use Bluebeam consistently in the office as a markup tool. The nice thing about this is it's real-time collaboration. So when someone puts a markup on a drawing, everyone sees it. You can track whether or not, once someone picks something up, they can say complete, so you can easily track that as well. Bluebeam's a tool that we've been using for a while. We like it a lot. I can show you a session real quick, just so you have an idea. And then drawing-wise, we're using Revit. I think the Revit CAD conversation is a long one and can easily be 3 hours long, but just the pros of Revit is it's a collaborative platform. You have multiple people in one model, and you can easily do that via the cloud using the BIM 360 tool. We've been using BIM 360 for about 2 years, and the latency is very small with 360. It's really nice the way Autodesk has set that up. Let's see if we All right, so Bluebeam, we have a session for each project. If I just jump into this same Bethany Church project, we'll post drawing sets as we print them. So progress sets, permit sets, whatever it may be. If we jump into one of these sets, we'll see sorry about this. You jump into one of these sets, you'll see all these markups. These markups are live, so when you're in session, if someone puts a markup on a page, everyone in the office sees it. If you select a markup, you can see who's created it. This one happened to be Bain. And if it's complete, you can set the status to complete and then filter it out so you don't see it anymore. Bluebeam is a fantastic tool. I highly recommend y'all look into it. The last kind of tips and tricks that I have is remote workspace. This was something that we talked a lot about in the office, trying to get everything set up. I think the first one is everyone should try to designate a space to work at home. Maybe you have a home office, which is great. A lot of people don't, but if you come back to the same place every day, you get back in that routine, you're more productive. Don't rely on your Wi-Fi. Wi-Fi goes in and out, it's unpredictable. Get to a place where you can plug in your computer to the Ethernet. We saw huge gains with respect to latency once everyone started to plug in. They had a lot fewer problems. The furniture one, it's a tough question because I'm sure if you tell your staff, hey, y'all should all go find economic furniture, who pays for it, whatever it may be. I think the point here is point it out to your staff. Tell them, hey, don't work from the couch. Find a chair, find a table. Make sure that all the things you're doing at work to stay healthy body-wise, you're doing at home too. If you don't have a home office, there's other ways to create quiet zones, whether it's noise canceling headphones, but you want some sort of zone where you can just focus. So create those quiet zones. Getting the right equipment, for sure, whether it's the right computer, the right desk, whatever it may be. Working hours. I've tried to instill in everyone to keep their routine. If you are a morning shower person, get up, take a shower, get prepared for work like you normally do. This kind of engages your brain, gets you ready, and makes you more efficient. We try and keep similar working hours to if everyone was in the office, with the understanding that we're in uncharted territories. There's so much going on. You need to also provide flexibility. So try, if someone has to check out for an hour, they know they got to make it up, that type of thing. But we really try to keep the same working hours. The last one is hard for me and my wife, Erin, and I'm sure it's hard for a lot of you. It's kids. We don't have daycare at the moment. How do we juggle a whole bunch of kids with a packed calendar? It's hard. I don't have one answer for this. Right now, it involves Erin and I just passing Julian back and forth from one call to the next. That's why I have Erin on my calendar and she has me on hers, so we can try and schedule things non-concurrently. That's all I had. Erin, happy to answer any questions at the end.
All right. Great. Thank you so much, David. And again, just a reminder, if folks have questions, to please put those in the Q&A box. Otherwise, at the end, during the Q&A session, we can also, if you raise your hand, should be able to allow you to talk as well. All right, so up next, we have Jason Richards, a Senior Associate of EskewDumezRipple. Jason has been a critical member of many award-winning projects, including the widely published Rosa Keller Library and Community Center, the New Orleans Ace Hotel and its sister property, Maison de la Luz Hotel. He is currently involved in several ongoing projects with the firm's higher education clients, including Tulane University, Cornell University, and Louisiana State University. As a senior associate and team leader, Jason is a talented, tireless architect who has achieved tremendous growth and advancement in a very short amount of time. He also served as president of AIA New Orleans in 2017 and maintains active membership in AIA, ULI, and USGBC. And we'll turn it over to Jason.
All right, thanks, Erin. Hello, everybody. I too recognize a lot of names on this list, so it's good to see everybody, even if I can't see you. I'm going to share my screen here. Hopefully it works out. I believe everybody should be able to see that now. So David touched on a lot of the technology things. I'm only just going to highlight where we have similarities or differences. I'm not going to go back over that, but I thought what might be helpful as one of the larger firms in town to go over what we had done in advance to prepare for this, even though we didn't know it was coming, where we fell short, and what sort of policies we've implemented since then to sort of get everybody on the same page. I don't know, David didn't mention his timeline exactly, but we, a week ago on Monday, so 2 full weeks now, made the call to go to working remotely. Last week we had something like 5 to 10 people on any given day in the office. I think right now we're probably down to just 1 or 2 people who may go in for a specific reason. So we currently have something like 52 people that are working from home. I wanted to talk mostly about policies. So this is just a screenshot from our employee handbook, which is to just say, like, we have a lot of procedures and maybe too many. But the main one was that was useful for us when this pandemic occurred was our hurricane plan. And I'm sure most of you have some version of this, and I've taken the names off of it in terms of who's responsible. But essentially, we had a structure in place for who in the firm would be responsible for things like communicating with IT, who would run point on setting up all the VPN stuff that we had to do. We had continuity for project management and a way to communicate with each other, and even obviously there's business management on the financial side of it, but even in marketing, business development, some procedures that are more detailed than what this matrix shows of who's going to be responsible for what when we all have to disperse and can't be in the same room together. The other thing, just from a basic communication standpoint, and again, I've deleted all the phone numbers from here, is that it's relatively easy in a firm of 50 people for us to be able to access each other, and things as basic as having a quick spot to go, and it's basically saved out to Microsoft SharePoint where everybody can get a hold of their contact information. It's extremely valuable. I don't have everybody's cell phone saved, but when I need to reach out to people, we had a way to do that without setting anything else up. So I encourage you to make sure you have something like that set up as well. And then, like David, we've been using a lot of cloud tools, some of the same, some different, and that has essentially come in real handy. One that we use in particular is 10,000 feet, which is just essentially a scheduling software. screenshot from that is up here. I think for probably 4 or 5 years, we've been doing our staffing that way. There's any number of other tools online that you can use to do this, and it doesn't particularly have to be this software. I think it was actually it was recently bought by Smartsheet, but the functionality so far has stayed the same. But what it's allowed us to do is to essentially take the staffing meeting. We have about 4 people who are responsible for staffing between various project teams. They were able to very seamlessly move that online. So if you're not using something like that, I don't know what the threshold would be, but I'd imagine David does something similar, even at a relatively small firm size. This is a really great tool to be able to use. Just to touch on some of the other technology, we use Slack on projects, but if you have a Office 365 subscription, Teams comes with it, and we just decided to go with that for our firm communication. The younger staff were using it already, but we've, in the last 2 weeks, transitioned up to where basically everyone can at least view it and see what people are saying. It's not as functionally rich as Slack, that's for sure, but it's working for us. We want to talk about how we've managed a little bit, and we use Zoom as a platform. We probably started using it about a year ago because we were noticing a lot of our clients switching over to it, and we were frustrated with the service we had at the time. But using it, the specifics of using it are less important than how we decided to set up touching base. And what we do essentially for the last 2 weeks is at 8:15, the firm leadership gets on the phone. We have a daily call at that time, and then that gives us enough time to review what IT issues have come up, discuss any business topics that are important, and then at 9 o'clock we transition into team meetings. We're broken up into essentially 3 studios. So that's about 3 groups of 15 people or so who all meet and talk about their work assignments. And then after that, people are using either Slack or Teams or Zoom to just have impromptu meetings across the day. So I think it feels redundant, but it's been very valuable to have these face-to-face interactions once a day with the entire team. As all of you have probably experienced working from home, your enthusiasm ebbs and flows. So sometimes they're energetic and sometimes they're not. But it's been a good structure. And then we, on Mondays, are still doing our all-staff meeting. One thing about Zoom that's very challenging for us, and I just screenshotted yesterday and Wednesday to give you a sense of coordination. If you have multiple people who are trying to use the same Zoom channel, we have, or at least made the decision a while ago to go to five accounts due to the volume of calls that we generally have in like a non-working from home situation. It's more than enough even for what we're doing, but we have to institute some policies about how you book your meeting. If it's recurring, you have to do it through the web portal. There are some ways you can get in trouble. So it's just to note that if you've got multiple people using the same channel, you need a lot of communication. And over communication, there's really no such thing as over communication. Before I move on to that, I just want to touch briefly. We are more or less in the same boat as one-to-one. We almost all of our staff are working from personal computers. We had enough accounts for Continuum, like LogMeIn, that the staff were able to relatively quickly, some of them were using it either while they were traveling or from home to do work. It has the same latency problems that David was mentioning, where there's a lot of lag. So we've spent the last week and a half trying to implement direct VPN for our staff. We're doing that through SonicWALL VPN. If you have a server set up or anything like that, it does make you a little bit more vulnerable because you have to open up a port on your actual server. But for the staff who are using it, it does seem to improve their efficiency while they're working remotely, particularly in things like Revit. We were slow to adopt BIM 360. I think it's a particularly excellent tool for small firms, and we were getting away with not using it because we have so much infrastructure built around our internal server. But it certainly accelerated our adoption of that. So we're strategically moving projects onto the cloud, depending on both what the project needs and what people's individual technology setups are. So all of that is in process right now at our firm as well. And then I just want to touch base on this website and this resource. If you're on the LinkedIn page for AIA, I provided a link to it, but Evelyn Lee and her website, The Practice of Architecture, she's been collecting comments from firms around the country and putting them into this shared Google Doc that you can basically get anyone who clicks the link can get read-only access to it. And what's nice about it is she's collected some strategies that firms are using depending on their size. So she's got them categorized as extra small, small, medium. I think everybody on this call is going to fall in those first three categories, and then a large and extra large. But there's a lot of stuff to read there and a lot of tips and tricks for those who are interested. So that's all I had, and I think, yeah, that's all I had. So I'll stop sharing my screen, and I think probably we'll hand it over to any questions.
Great. All right. Thank you so much. And yeah, now we'll move into the question and answer segment. Lauren, if you want to hop on that.
Yeah, hi everybody. We do have one question so far, and it is for David. And the question is, what panel in Bluebeam did you have turned on to be able to change the status of a markup?
Let me share the screen. You don't have to be in any particular panel. All you have to do is right-click on a markup and go to Set Status. So just right-click and set status.
Do we have any other questions, or if someone wants to raise their hand to share any resources that they've been using and have found helpful? Oh, it looks like we have a question from Jessica Walker. Most staff is using personal computers at home, she asked.
Yes.
Yeah, so we have, I think, probably about 10 staff have work-issued laptops. I have a work-issued laptop, so I've brought that home with me. That presents an interesting challenge. So I think of all the staff that have laptops, it's basically people in our firm who are often in the field for CA and the principals or firm leaders. And one challenge of it has been, like, what I'm trying to say is, it's almost been a better setup for us for people who have a personal machine that they prefer to log into, because everything that's in the office they can get right into, as it is for someone in my situation who'd like to use Revit until we're on the cloud with the projects I'm working on, which we're almost there. There's not much I can do to help out. The other thing is I can get into the company VPN through that SonicWALL, but I have to more or less pull the files off to be able to work on them and then drag them back on. So there's plus and minuses to both approaches.
We have Annie Labruzzo.
Oh yeah, I saw that. I pulled that up. Hey, Annie. It is, I think I can answer it by typing in, wait, shoot. It says that I answered it, but I didn't. Aaron, do you want to explain the page that AIA New Orleans set up? I'll also, if I can figure out a way to type in this chat situation, I'll just share the link out to the presenters. But Aaron, you might want to explain the page.
Yeah, we have started a member forum in LinkedIn. So we have a little kind of members only site there. The whole title is AIA New Orleans Members Forum, where folks can share any resources that they have or any advocacy opportunities, and we've been posting in that regularly since we started it. So that resource is up in there.
There it is. You can say answer by text. So Darren asked the same question. So in the Q&A, can everybody see the Q&A, or is that just the presenters?
Once the questions have been answered.
Okay. So for Darren asked the same question, and I put the link in the file. It's an indiscernible Google Doc link. But again, if you want to navigate to AIA's LinkedIn page, from there they have the COVID page, and it has the link to the practice of architecture document.
That specific resource we've also shared on our one of our web pages that has a bunch of COVID-19 updates resources. We have some with that particular link from the practice of architectures on the remote work resources tab. We also have links to local, state, and national resources, which focuses more on governmental and AIA specific things. And then we have board and staff updates.
Yeah, and I'm just going to share one of the last pages from our Google slides so that you can see some of these resources as they're available. So this is the LinkedIn member forum and the resources page that Lauren was just talking about. We also have another webinar in the works coming up next Friday at the same time at 1 p.m. where we will be speaking with Keith Bergeron from Deutsche Kerrigan about issues with contracts that might be impacted by COVID-19. So we will be sending around some information about how to sign up for that, and would love you to join us next Friday as well. And then our emails are included below if you want to reach out to us directly.
Oh, and one more thing before we say goodbye today is that if you would like to get an LU credit for this, we did get it approved. And I see a few people don't have their full names in the attendee list. So if you could just go ahead and take a second and just type your full name into the Q&A box, I can collect your names that way and give you credit. And I also see that somebody has called in and we don't actually have your name. So if you could just email me your name, I would be very happy to get you credit for that.
It looks like we have, okay, yes, people are typing in their names. Okay, great.
Excellent.
All right, Jason, David, any final thoughts?
Patience and flexibility.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's I think David touched on this about staff and well-being and your own personal well-being. I think, you know, if you've been like me and you've been reading online about this, it's probably worth saying, like, you just need to make sure that you're not overworking yourself if you have the opportunity to do it, and that you're also maintaining your focus, and that's just very hard to do. So good luck.
And don't read too much about COVID.
Great. All right, well, thank you so much, David and Jason, for your presentations, and thank you everyone else for joining us. And again, please, participate through our LinkedIn members forum, check out our resources page, and we look forward to speaking with you all at our next webinar on Friday. Stay safe, everyone.
Bye.